Okay, welcome everyone to our second episode of our B2B marketing series. Today's episode will be about designing the perfect marketing journey. I'm your host, Scott Dennis, and today's presentation will be given by Manus van Bates, our head of production and our newly appointed director of Black Box. Congrats on that, Manus. And I'll just let you introduce yourself.
Hey, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. As Scott mentioned, thank you and welcome to the second in a series of classes that we will be giving. We are going to be covering a lot in B2B marketing, and today's focus is going to be designing marketing journeys. We hope that you will find this valuable. So just from my side, I am the head of production in Black Fox. So in essence, that's the head of marketing, as we are running quite a few various marketing campaigns for different clients. So what helps in the agency environment is that we do get access and we are able to speak to a lot of topics. We work with various clients with various products, and we get exposure to a variety of products. So it gives us experience that you wouldn't normally have in a smaller agency. That being said, I'm going to kick off the presentation today. So let me just share my screen so that you guys can see my presentation, and then we will start.
Yeah, and just before we start, Manus, if anyone has any questions, please use the Q&A feature, and then we'll answer it throughout the webinar. So yeah, back to you, Manus.
Perfect. So let me start sharing. Scott, just let me know when you can see my screen.
Yep, can see it. Perfect.
Okay, perfect. So as I mentioned, today we are going to be covering how to design the perfect marketing journey. It's a bit of a tall order to design the perfect journey, but I would rather say we will be focusing on how to create and ultimately get to the perfect journey. A journey, when you start designing it, is never perfect. We always want to start with a minimum viable product, just something to get started. One of the biggest loopholes or failings that I've seen in marketing is that people spend so much time in planning and waiting to get everything perfect that they do not get to the point where they launch. And without that launch and without that insights that you are gaining from a launch and getting the actual feedback from the market, you are sitting blind to some degree. So it is imperative that you start your journey as soon as possible. That being said, let's just mention that we are going to be talking about traffic acquisition as the first point in the marketing journey, and then ending on the how to convert that traffic into sales qualified leads. So we will try to cover as much as possible, but if you have any specific questions, as Scott said, please drop them in the chat or the Q&A, and we will try to get to them. So let's just do a brief recap. As we mentioned, this is the second in a series of master classes, as we would like to call them. So the first master class was about your research process. How do you understand your audience? What steps should you take? In this webinar, we covered everything from identifying your audience, one second, okay, to knowing what to give them, what content to give them, what to cover, what not. We covered various types of research that we will be utilizing. So we looked at competitor research. We looked at understanding the product, ultimately understanding our audience in a very good manner. All of these things ultimately culminate in us creating a positioning and messaging framework that we can use in this marketing journey. So that being said, once you have this document or all of this research compiled, we need to start using this. Now, that is very easy to say, but where to start? Sometimes having a journey that is sensical, that you can rely on, is not the easiest process. So, and depending on your tools, this might be difficult as well. So I do want to just talk about how you start this. Now, in this webinar, we are going to cover quite a few topics, from traffic acquisition to how your journey should flow from one to another, the types of content you can add into your journey, what is the best practice in terms of getting them to convert. And yeah, that's our main focus of this webinar. Scott, if I may ask you, can you just please bring me a charger, or get someone to bring me a charger for my laptop, just in case I die? Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. A hand nearby. So after we've done all of that, we now need to start with this process. And the first part of the marketing journey, the one that we all love, is budget. We are in a position where our marketing plan might seem elaborate. We want this very cool vision, but as you see on the screen, we might sit with a marketing budget that will only get us a dinghy. And then when we actually talk to the decision makers in the business, they're expecting a cruise ship. So we are in a situation where the expectations that is put upon us does not always correlate with the reality that we sit in. How do we actually pull our budget into getting good results? We have to ensure that we have to provide insights or provide results that will actually convert at the end of the day, and we have to show good ROI. So ROI is ultimately the thing that we are chasing. In brand marketing, that might be a bit different. Whilst brand marketing doesn't show immediate conversion in terms of as easily as performance marketing on return on your revenue, because you are ultimately building out your brand. Ultimately, when you are the marketer, you should always try to pull your plans, your strategies into a real life expectations of ROI. So in our case, with performance marketing, which I'm going to be focusing on primarily in this webinar, there's quite an easy way of tracking performance, so tracking ROI. We have to look at the cost that we're putting into our various social media platforms or our various traffic acquisition platforms, as well as the software that we use, and ultimately get to a point where we showcase that the return that we're getting at the end of the day, the conversions, as well as the opportunities and actual sales, that is correlating to the cost you are expending throughout the course of this journey. Now, aligning the marketing budget with the marketing goals, that is often a difficult matter that needs to be confirmed. As we mentioned, the business wants the world, and we have to figure out what we can actually give them within the constraints that we have. Some of the factors we are considering at this stage is, firstly, the cost of traffic acquisition. I think that is the main issue that we sit with. We have to pay for traffic in some way. So let me just quickly check that I'm charging. I am. So with that in mind, we now need to figure out which platform to use. What's the most cost-effective yet result-effective manner that we will be getting results? Then we have to look at what's the cost of our CRM. Does our campaigns actually justify the cost of the CRM? And if so, what type of CRM? We have to look at email marketing. Is that a better choice? Then we have to look at automations and analytics costs. All of these costs at the end of the day add up. And we have to ensure that our whole marketing plan aligns with within these budget constraints. Now, with that taken in mind, we can start with understanding our audience and how they will purchase. Because the budget planning, you have to take in mind with where you are going to meet your audience. Now, Understanding your audience is probably one of the most important aspects of marketing. We have to know exactly where they live. Where will we be able to find the audience that we need? In our first masterclass, we found out who is going to be our champion, who is going to be the person that we need to reach to have the biggest chance of converting them to a sales qualified lead and ultimately lead to a conversion. So once you have that, you also have to look at where do these people spend their time? Are they going to be someone who's scrolling on Facebook? Are they going to be someone who you find on TikTok? Are they going to be someone who you find on the more niche specialist areas of the market? They only consume content from specialist providers, specialist magazines, special online platform. So this is some of the considerations. You also have to look at when will they consume content. Should you be running your ads in the morning? Should you be running your videos in the afternoon? When and where should you be sending emails? All of these factors you need to consider, because ultimately what we're trying to do is get in touch with your audience at the right time, at the right place, to maximize your chance of conversion. Now, you also need to look at what type of content they will consume. Is your audience more likely to react to ebooks? Is that the thing that will make them convert? Are they going to be looking for more research-heavy white papers? Are they going to be converted with a interesting and funny video? What is the thing that will make your audience tick? All of this we had to already establish before you start your journey mapping. So all of this information you should be able to pull from your PMF that you create, your positioning and messaging framework, because this is where you did the legwork in terms of understanding your audience. If, however, you did not, I would suggest going back to ground zero and starting afresh and just making a few calls, asking your target audience, what type of content do you want? What will resonate with you? Where will you live? Now, when you have this information, you now get to the next step in traffic acquisition, and that is choosing the right platform. This is probably, in my opinion, one of the most difficult aspects that we have to do. We have to put a bet on some sort of platform. We have to figure out, where are we going to spend that budget that we have? Are we going to be spending our budget on Facebook? Are we going to be spending our budgets on Google? Is that the platform that we want to utilize? Are we going to start using third-party syndication platforms? Are we not going to use any of these platforms and purely rely on cold calls? What is the area? To determine this, we look at a variety of aspects. This will be like demographics. We will have to look at the effectiveness of ads historically on this platform. We have to get some behavioral insights. So these are just some of the aspects that we have to look at. I'm quickly going to jump to the next slide. I'll jump back in a minute. But these are the types of demographics that you as a marketer need to start to learn. You have to look at what's the most widely used platforms in your country, if you are actually marketing within your country. If you are outside of your country, you have to do some research to determine what they will be using. On this graph, you will see WhatsApp is a great platform in South Africa, but it's not the most easy platform to utilize when doing inbound marketing. But the next biggest, and it remains to today, is still Facebook. Facebook is categorically the best performing platform in South Africa. TikTok is consistently growing. It's definitely one of our main areas. Instagram is very high on the mark. Then we have to look at something like Twitter. Twitter in South Africa, or X as it's now called, Twitter has been seeing a consistent decline by businesses and the use by businesses in South Africa. Some of the reasoning is that they feel that the platform is kind of insensitive in the information that they are allowing on the platform. But then you look at the global platform, and on the global market, Twitter is actually growing in popularity. Then you look at LinkedIn, which is still performing very well. And all of these factors you now sit with. But just because, for example, Facebook is one of the highest performing platforms in South Africa, it does not mean that that is the correct platform for you to choose. You have to determine whether the person you are trying to reach will be actually on Facebook, or whether, if they are on Facebook, they will be basing their business decisions on the information that they find on that platform. One of the big things we have to consider is telemarketing as an inbound strategy. Is that going to be effective? Is it a long-term plan? You have to determine what your short-term goals versus your long-term goals. We, in many cases, have to run campaigns within a period of 3 months. When you sit with time constraints of that nature, creating and building, managing a inbound marketing funnel is quite difficult. Historically, we have struggled significantly with that. In those cases, we've often had to rely on possibly combining or replacing our inbound efforts with outbound telemarketing calls. We had to figure out how are we going to use this method, which is very labor intensive, to get the conversions that we need. So these are the decisions that you will have to consider when going through this journey of designing your journey mapping. So once again on this slide, you will see that it's going to be your job as the marketer to stay up to date on all of these factors of what platforms are popular in your country, what type of content is popularly consumed in your country, what's the various areas and times that content is consumed within your country specific. We've had to run content in several countries as a marketing agency, and every single time that we went into this area, we had to do this research. We aren't as well versed in the other countries as we are with our own. For example, when we looked at doing a marketing campaign in Kenya, we were astounded to find out that they were one of the biggest users of mobile devices. So trying to reach them on platforms that's primarily based on desktop use would be useless. We had to take that into account. Now, I have 2 examples to showcase how we go about determining this. So we have created 2 personas. This persona is the small to medium business owner. They are in a business of about 10 to 15 people. They own the whole business. We now need to market to them as a target. We have a simple software solution that we want to take to them, let's say an accounting software, and we now need to reach them with the right marketing material to convert them. So just some of their characteristics: they are new to the market. They do not have expansive knowledge about software tools. They use the basics. They use the Microsoft Office suite. They use basic information. So where do we reach them? What type of content do we give them? Will cold calling be effective? So in his case, we would be going with platforms like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. This is for 2 reasons. Whilst LinkedIn is brilliant for reaching businesses, it's not necessarily the most cost-effective way to reach businesses with solutions that are not high value. We are looking in this instance at reaching as big an audience as we can with as big a net as we can. We always have to keep that marketing thought in mind of whether you should be fishing with a net, whether you should be fishing with a line. In this instance, we want to throw the net as wide as possible, catch as many people as possible for as cheap as possible, because we are looking for bulk sales. To make the most return on investment, we have to make a lot of small sales to showcase our return in this instance. So therefore, we choose the cheapest and the easiest platforms that will be highly consumed by people who can make easy decisions. So this is why we would choose these specific platforms. Now, will we be using telemarketing in this instance? This is going to be a bit of a difficult one because, yes, I think we could. It will, however, be determined by the value of the software that we are trying to sell. If the software solution is a extremely cheap solution, like a 99 Rand solution per month, I would not recommend telemarketing. You have to look at how much you will have to put into paying for the telemarketing calls, how much time, how much effort. If you're paying a third party, what their cost would be, as well as the possible return. Always try to justify your decision in which traffic acquisition source you're choosing by looking at the return that you will be getting from this endeavor. Now, so this is the easy people. They make quick decisions. They can pay for the solution with a credit card. They don't have to have a lot of levels in decision making. This guy, this owner of the business, he can just make a decision and pay for the solution, and there you go. You've got a sale. Now, if you go to the next persona, this person is the CTO of a large enterprise. Now, how do we reach them? Just some information about them. Let's say this person is the Chief Technology Officer of a big organization with about 2,000 employees. Firstly, people will be chasing this person like crazy. All of us want to reach them. So how do you go about that? Are you going to be putting a marketing ad on Facebook and try to reach them by pushing hundreds of rands into running your ad there, just hoping that there might be a slight chance that he goes on Facebook, he randomly sees the software and he thinks, oh my goodness, I saw on Facebook a solution, it's going to be perfect for our big organization. Just unfortunately, this is not going to happen. These people are in an organization with very sophisticated buying methods. This person will never be able to just take out a credit card, pay for a solution, and go. They will have to have layers of decision makers agreeing with their decision to go with a specific provider based on incredible amounts of data. So, what our goal is with this specific audience member, we need to firstly reach him. We need to get our content in front of him. And then we have to convince him that our software might be the solution to this person's specific pain point. And then we have to give him enough information to convince the other decision makers in the organization to at least listen to us. We need to get one salesperson into a room or onto a call with this individual so that they can start interacting, so that this person can eventually become our champion that will make our deployment within their organization possible. Now, the first step would be to reach them. How do we go about that? LinkedIn is one of the most effective ways to reach high-level B2B audiences, but still quite costly. Unfortunately, when we are talking about this type of audience, this is where we will stop trying to fish with a net. We are trying to fish with a line at this point. So we have to be very specific in how we reach them. On LinkedIn, we can consider items like doing account-based marketing, going after specific enterprise organizations, and trying to reach the right decision makers in those organizations. We can further look at trying to publish our content on industry-specific publications. So this could be, for example, publishing a piece of content on Tech Republic or IT Web, or some area where this specific audience member will frequent. We can look at third-party syndication, which I will cover a bit more in depth later, but ultimately that is going to a third party who has the job of publishing content on their site. You give them a certain amount of money, and in return for that, they will give you some form of lead generation mechanism. Then We have to consider telemarketing. And this is once again a very difficult decision in this case. With this type of audience member, the layers that you will have to go through to be able to speak to this person will be incredibly difficult. You will have to go through firstly the business's secretary, then you will have to go through his personal secretary, then there might be a further decision maker that you have to go through before you even get the chance to speak to this person. With that in mind, I would not recommend doing cold calls in this case, unless you have some sort of form of direct line with them. And please remember, even in that case, there are always POPI considerations that you have to keep in mind. All of this is always governed by the requirement that anything that you do needs to adhere to POPI. We have to keep that in mind as marketers. We have an increased obligation because we are dealing with sensitive information. So we need to ensure that we are providing information to our clients, in this instance, that will be of sound value and that cannot be, so that we cannot be taken to the information regulator due to inconsistencies with the requirements. Now, if we look at the next slide, now, this is the funnel journey that we will take on. Here we will look at just some base content topics. So we refer to TOFUs, MOFUs, and BOFUs. This is top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. At the top of funnel is where you use traffic acquisition methods to get traffic into your funnel. You, at the MOFU level, in the middle, you will be nurturing these people in a variety of ways. You will be giving them content that will convince them eventually to come to you as a provider. And at the bottom of funnel, you will give them a value proposition that will hopefully convince them to switch over to you as their provider or to sign up to you as their provider. So this funnel is how we will then eventually convert leads from just traffic into sales, or at least sales qualified leads. There is a further sales funnel, but I'm not going to cover that today. We might create one in the future. So now that we've got the base concept, having the traffic at the TOFU by giving people a variety of content that they can consume in exchange for their details, we will start converting them in a variety of ways and ultimately give them a value proposition and convert them into leads. Now, here are some components of a potential marketing funnel. Okay, so when we look at traffic acquisition, we have to think of all of the mechanisms that we can utilize. This will be, are we going to advertise on LinkedIn? Are we going to advertise on Facebook? Are we advertising on Google? All of our traffic acquisition entry points. So we have to keep in mind that those are all components that we have to keep in mind. We have to track, we have to ensure that each lead that comes in, we are tracking them and that they flow into our funnel. What happens often is we don't track the exact numbers that comes into our funnel. We forget about them and they disappear. We've just wasted that money that we spent on acquiring that traffic and they are no longer in our journey. Then we look at something like landing pages. In many instances, we have to figure out where are we going to be putting our message. We can put our message on an email. We can put our message in an ebook that we run an ad for. We can put our message on an ad, but in many instances, we have to create specific online pages where we put messages, and those messages will then ultimately convert people to a next step. So we create as an agency tons of landing pages. The goals of these pages are just to give people enough information to take the next step. If we're at the bottom of the funnel, the next step would be to get someone to make a decision about a call to convert someone. Then we can look at telephonic calls. This is an interesting one because in many cases, cold calling starts with a cold call and leads directly to a sales conversation. But it doesn't have to be just that way. we can add telephonic calls within a marketing journey, where after consuming 3 pieces of content, we give this person a call. No longer is it a cold call. This is now a call based on traffic that has been consumed, or at least content that has been consumed. Then we can look at webinars, one of my favorite components of a marketing funnel, because this is very unique in nature. A webinar can serve as both a traffic acquisition source, where you are getting net new traffic, as well as a conversion mechanism. With webinars, you have the opportunity of getting people into your funnel, getting their information so that you can continue nurturing them. But if you do a webinar, you also have the opportunity to give them a call to action and to possibly give them an opportunity to actually convert into a lead. You will see that in action today, to be honest, because we will be launching a poll later in this webinar where we give you the opportunity to convert into a lead. So this is where you have one mechanism, but it serves more than one purpose. Then we also have to look at SEM, so search engine marketing. This you can do with the display ads, for example, or on Google ads. So this is another component. And then you can also look at syndication platforms. So a platform where you can syndicate content, get some traffic, and have that traffic feed into your funnel. Now, we have to just quickly touch on immediate conversion versus funnel engagement. So when you are creating your funnel, you do not necessarily want to force people to go through your entire journey just to end up at the bottom of the funnel and possibly convert. Many people are looking for a solution actively. They are trying to convert, they are trying to find something that will help them solve a specific pain point. If your specific solution has the ability to solve that pain point, you do not want to force that person to read 5 ebooks before they can buy a book, or before they can buy the solution. There should always be a shortcut. If you look at the little image on the picture, sometimes people are just looking for a solution. They don't want to go through stages of information and nurturing. They just want a solution. So never try to force people throughout your entire journey when you have the opportunity to convert them immediately. So on the screen, you will see a very, very basic funnel. This is probably our baseline funnel that we always use in most inbound campaigns. There will always be at least one piece of content. In this case, we selected the tofu as an ebook. We will choose the platforms where we place it. This one will be placed on Facebook and LinkedIn. And then we look at how we are going to get these people when they come into our journey, either through a lead generation ad or through a web conversion ad. Either way, in this case, we chose a lead gen ad because we have one less landing page to build. So once we get their details, after a specific amount of time, we send them an email asking them if they would like to find out about the product. We take them to a bottom of funnel page where we give them information about the product. They say they would like a sales call, and we call them. It's the most basic funnel that we have in our organization. There are times when you do pure BOFU ads. So that is the instance where you run an ad specifically highlighting just your solution and what your solution can do, and people will immediately convert. But that is not as much a journey. So trying to design a journey around that is not the best idea, because it's a pure buying ad. In our case, we try to build quite complex funnels so that we are able to catch people at various stages and have the chance to convert them. Now, if we look at the next funnel, this is an extended funnel. So this is one that we actually utilized at some point within our organization. In this instance, we ran 3 different types of webinar ads to one specific webinar. In this webinar, we got our traffic, we got our names of the people who wanted to come to the webinar, and some of these people immediately converted. On the same hand, we also ran up to 3 to 4 different tofus. So this could have been ebooks or white papers or even infographics. We ran them on Facebook and LinkedIn. All of them were ran at the same time, consecutively collecting PII, personally identifiable information, for us to utilize within our funnel. We did a lot of cross-pollination. So people that we got in from the webinar, we also sent them the tofus. We utilize this where we recycle material to some extent as a MOFU journey. We give people content consistently of high value so that they are consistently engaged and they are starting to see that we know what we are talking about. So at the end of this, we also included some search engine marketing, driving traffic to the webinar, driving traffic to our various tofus, and having people consume a lot of content. We also then created the BOFU ad here on the right, where people had the opportunity to eventually convert to a lead. So throughout this entire journey, we have been collecting PII, and that database is one of our most valuable assets as an organization, because with that database, we can consistently keep running ads and keep utilizing that database with emails, engagement, and convert them at various levels. This is also brilliant when you are trying to do some upselling, giving the same audience another solution that your organization might create that will also serve this audience. So if you are targeting CTOs and you've got 50 CTOs and you've got 2 solutions, you can utilize that same database to sell to both of these audiences, or to both of these solutions to this one audience. And whilst you might not catch them on the one solution, they might be struggling with something that will answer them on the second solution. Now, this I want to touch on quite quickly is the content consumption and the funnel timing. So these are some of the considerations when you are building your funnel. We utilize some advanced CRMs where we can build automations into our sequencing. So we have to consider, should we be sending an ebook to someone and then after 1 week send them another ebook, or should we send it after 2 weeks? Should we be sending them first a possible BOFU conversion page or an email that links to a BOFU conversion page, or should we be sending that only after sending them 2 content pieces? Is there a right answer? No, there is not. We have to figure out through trial and error what is the best sequence, what is the best timing, what will lead to the best conversion. Once you have this up and running, you have consistently been doing some A/B testing, figuring out what works, figuring out what is the thing that will ultimately lead to conversion. Then you have built a brilliant automated marketing funnel. You can then sit back, just turn on your ads, and your marketing funnel will do the work for you. So the content will be served to this person at specific dates in a proven method and ultimately lead to conversions that's at least somewhat predictable. So that's our goal at the end of the day, trying to create a predictable method to bring in leads. Unfortunately, we have to always consistently be updating and upgrading our funnels because people get tired of specific content. You have to consistently remain relative. And this is where our content strategist comes in, because they are the people that will consistently be writing content that will align with the audience. So just some best practices for content sequencing. We have to look at progressive engagement, ensure that that you get consistent leads. You have to consistently nurture them. And a big thing in B2B, by giving people consistent content that will prove valuable to them, you are building trust in your brand. By providing ebooks or providing webinars that will help an end user solve some type of problem that they were dealing with, you as an organization are building trust and you are gaining that from your audience. One of the best brands in terms of this, in my opinion, is SEMrush. They provide brilliant content to those who have signed up. They give valuable insights. They give data that is actually that you're able to utilize within your organization. So try to look for those people who you see have brilliant ways of doing their marketing and copy them. Then I want to go to a quick debate on content sequencing. A lot of people feel like you should be providing content in a way that is sequenced. So one content piece leads to the next, leads to the next, ultimately giving them 4 pieces that forms a series. And at the end of that content journey, you give them a call to action. I am personally not a fan of that. I believe you should give people standalone content at all times so that whenever you provide them with content, they are able to utilize that as a standalone piece. You are not able to force someone to watch a specific webinar. You are not able to force someone to consume an ebook. So expecting them to follow a specific series of events is reducing your chance of converting them at the end of the day. So I always am a promoter of giving good, great quality standalone pieces that can be consumed on their own and speak to specific pain points separately and not combining them into a series. Whilst it is fine to do a series, all pieces of content should be able to stand alone in terms of its execution. So if you have a standalone, you are able to have a more flexible funnel. You are able to resend pieces of content to people at various times, allowing them to consume content when they want and if they want, and only consume the content that will help them in their journey. Okay, then just conversion optimization. This is a big one that we have to keep in mind. We have to track everything. As a marketer, you need to track everything. You have to strategically place all of your call to actions within your journey. When will you be asking someone to either go to the next step in the journey? When will you be asking them to potentially turn into a lead? When will you be asking them to go to a webinar? And track these metrics. See when they are actually more inclined to take certain actions. Is there a piece of content that should be consumed before you give them the option to convert to a lead, or are they good at the place that they are in the journey? So just some optimization metrics for you to look at. So these are the things that we look at on a daily basis. Open rates of emails. If that's not good, consider changing your subject line. Click-through rates. This is an email engagement indicator. Maybe your subject line is not good. Maybe something might be wrong in that journey. You want to look at conversions. So if they click through into the email, but they do not convert to a lead, or they do not click onto the call to action to go to the next journey, you better go look at your copy. There might be something wrong with the content of that email, or even your graphics. So that's when you start doing A/B tests. You see which one of 2 different options works better. So on landing pages, you've got a different set of metrics that you can look at. You can look at heat maps. You can look at time spent on the landing page, how quickly they jump off from the landing page. All of these are indicators of how people are consuming the content. Are they finding it valuable? Are they not? Is there something that you can optimize until you've got a funnel that is as near as perfect as you can possibly get? There are always some additional metrics you can look at, bounce rates, that you might have emails that's incorrect. Throw them out. There's no need to keep sending emails to them. There might be conversion rates, where this is the one that I mentioned, where your copy might be a bit of a problem. So all of these metrics should always be taken into account and measured. So just some technical considerations. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because we are planning on doing a further webinar on this. So this is just where you are looking at tags, tagging people with specific tags so that you know how to engage with them, what type of content do they enjoy, What do they not? What can you learn about your specific contact so that you can serve content to them that aligns with their wants and needs better? There are a lot of things to take into account: automations, analytics, tagging strategies, campaign tactics. All of these items are very technical in terms of your technical back room people will be looking at these. They will be doing some deep analytics, figuring out what's the best options. So I will quickly run through the traffic acquisition platforms. I've already kind of touched on this. So just some to consider: Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Those are the ones we mostly use in South Africa, at least. We look at Google ads, or search engine ads, Google, Bing. Then we have display ads, which we use Google Display, possible programmatic ads. Then a big one for us is content syndication, that you can utilize to find that difficult to reach audience members that won't necessarily be found on Facebook. I'm going to run through the rest because I know Scott wants to give a bit of time just for some of the Q&As. So just some of the software that you should consider in your marketing journey. Always think of a CRM. If you're able to justify the cost of a CRM, this is to some degree an end-to-end solution. You can utilize this to track the journey of your audience members, ensuring that you are managing that relationship at all times. You can always do it in a manual manner, but this is prone to human error, and we want to eliminate that as much as possible. We have to look at software that will help you create landing pages. We have a piece of software that we use called Landini, where we build out our landing pages. We utilize another more expansive piece of software or CRM called ActiveCampaign, where we also build some of our simple landing pages. So this is where you just create that simple landing page with a simple call to action to convert people within the funnel. We look at email marketing sequencing tools. That's a mouthful. We try to send people emails in a specific manner, in a specific order, and consistently be engaging with them. Email marketing is one of the best ways to reach the B2B audience. Where are business leaders, where are business managers sitting for a majority of their time? Behind their desk, behind their laptop, looking at their emails. So this is a brilliant way to reach that B2B audience. You can use tools like MailChimp, ConvertKit, ActiveCampaign. There's a variety of softwares available, but I would always recommend try to find a piece of software that does as much as possible for your organization. We have automation and workflow software where you can automate journeys, set the times, ensure that people are receiving every piece of content in an automated way to prevent them from having to rely on manual sends. Once again, eliminating some of that manual labor and relying on automated sequences. Analytics tracking always is something that you have to keep in mind. Without tracking analytics, you are shooting blind. You are trying to do something, and very often you do get something right, but without the deep insights, your ability to improve is hampered significantly. There is always the option for manual solutions. All of this is possible with some minimal tools. You can use your normal email, you can use your normal Excel sheets to track your metrics, but once again, that will take time. It will eliminate your productivity. It will not be as effective as doing something in an automated manner. So just last slide that I have is just establishing your campaign timeline. Always ensure, even if you're going to run a campaign for a long time, ensure that you put in place a start and an end date, so that when that end date comes, you can at least consider your progress thus far. After about 3 months, put a line in the sand and say, okay, let's look. Is my ads, or is my traffic that I'm getting from Facebook actually converting? Is my traffic that I'm getting from Instagram actually converting? Look at all of your data, make some decisions, cancel things, add things, build out your funnel based on your findings. So yeah, that's the base of my presentation today. And then I know Scott has some questions potentially.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you for that session, Marnus. I see in the chat, Cassandra Naidu, she asked, does Copier allow for the use of third-party data with cookie depreciation? I assume that we can't use third-party data, only first-party data.
Okay, so cookies is a very interesting one in South Africa. To some degree, cookies is allowed. It's a very gray area because Copier does not allow you to collect personal identifiable information. And with cookies, unless you've got access to the third-party platform like Google, where they are actually saying which IP address is matched to which person, then it's unlikely that you will be able to actually identify who the person is that has who you've given a cookie on your website. So that is a bit of a gray area in South Africa. I know there are countries where this is not allowed. So it's a slightly gray area, but yeah, something to consider at all times.
Yeah.
Please always, if you are going to give information to any third parties, permission. As long as you've got permission by your direct person to give it to a specific entity, that is allowed. Permission is always the key in marketing.
Yeah, awesome. And then Andrea Muller, she asked, how do you decide how often to do A/B testing? And also, what if there are multiple champions that you've identified? How do you know which one is more likely to take the desired action?
Now, let's start with the second one. The second question is answered by your first question. If you have two champions that you are thinking might be able to be the answer to your solution, A/B test them. Send both of these champions messages, see who converts and see who doesn't. Those who do, keep that message. If the one is more effective than the other, that's the one you go with. In terms of when you do A/B testing, as much as possible, as often as possible, never stop doing A/B testing, because that is where you are learning from what is working versus not. There is some things you have to keep in mind when doing A/B testing so that you do reach a large enough audience that the results is actually reliable, but within the confines of what is possible with A/B testing, do it as much as possible, because then you are learning what is actually effective versus what is not.
Yeah, thank you for that. Ladies and gents, we do have 4 minutes remaining in our session. If you can please put your attention on the chat, we will be launching our poll question like Marnus mentioned earlier. This is just a way for us to get our own leads at the end of the day. So if you'd like to have a consultation with Blackbox on how we can outgrow your B2B tech company, please answer on the poll below and we'll get in touch right after this webinar. We have 3 minutes remaining. For those of you that came from the Marketing Association of South Africa, please use the post-webinar email that will be sent after this as your confirmation for your CPD points. And I would just like to thank Marnus for this very interesting session. I mean, I was glued to my screen. I don't know if you were. So yeah, thank you for that, Marnus. While we wait for everyone to just fill out the question, the poll question, I have a question on my own. How do you decide when to use telemarketing and when to use a digital funnel for your campaigns?
Okay, so one of the factors that I always consider is timing. The one thing you have to remember with building a digital funnel is it does take time. You have to create copy. First you have to understand your audience in depth. Then you have to create copy that will resonate with them. The The only way to create good quality content is to do some research and to build quantity or quality content that will resonate. Then you have to design that content. Then you have to build it. You have to add it into a journey. So the timing aspect is a big deal. The further aspect is telemarketing is effective, especially in South Africa. It's one of our most effective lead generation mechanisms, but it's also very manual. It does take someone sitting on a phone doing calls consistently, and that will not change. Whilst if you are investing in a marketing funnel with a lot of automation, then that machine can keep running into perpetuity. You may have to add into it every now and again, but ultimately, once it is running, it is self-sustaining. So you don't have to consistently have someone on the phone managing it. So that's my key consideration. How quickly I need leads and how much labor I have to get them.
Awesome. Well said, Manus. One last question. For those companies that are struggling with the lead conversion, let's say at the BOFU stage, what advice do you have for them?
So that is where marketing and sales needs to start working together. So I don't know if you are referring to converting them to actual opportunities or converting them to the bottom of funnel.
Converting them to the bottom of funnel, so on your BOFU page.
Now, that is where you start looking at metrics. When people are consuming your content, but they aren't converting, then I would recommend you start looking at the content on your BOFU page. Maybe there's something missing. Maybe you're not speaking directly to the value that your software is truly bringing to this audience. So look at the content you have, convert your content, or change your content. Look at the insights you can get from heat mapping. Where do you lose people's attention? Fix that, and you fix your journey.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gents, thank you all for joining us for today's session. Thank you, Manus, especially for delivering a great webinar. If you haven't already, don't forget to fill out the poll question and keep an eye out for our next webinar. I think it's going to be happening on the 14th of December. And it's all about content marketing, and I think it's going to be quite a good one. So thank you for today's session. I hope you guys have a great day further.
Thanks, Scott, and thanks, everyone.
Bye.